I was gonna ask you after your studies, did did you teach music full time since you were a music educator to like general music pre-K through fifth or middle or high school choir since your material covers all three divisions in a way, and that's pretty amazing because as I was searching through your biography, I was like, I wonder if was actually a full-time music teacher or what you said, you were a guest um, clinician or a choreographer. So,
Right. Yeah, well, that's a good question. I never took a teaching job. I did my student teaching, and in my student teaching, I taught K through 12 vocal music and K through 6 instrumental music. I mean, that's kind of what you did. So there are some of the worst saxophone players in the world in Barneveld, Wisconsin, because of me.
well, was
And
that your
but you know,
main instrument?
no,
Saxophone?
I was a vocal
Okay.
music major. But I had to, when you got all this RTT, you had to teach everything. It was this
Yeah.
little town. You had one music teacher who taught everything. And so that's the experience that I got too. And so it's stay one step ahead of the students and some of those instruments. And but no, I didn't take a teaching job because the day after graduation, I moved to Florida and started. I already had a job lined up at Disney World upon graduation. So that was about as far as I had planned. And I loved my student teaching, but I had this opportunity to go and be in professional showbiz. And so at 22 years old, I decided to do that. Years later, maybe 7 or 8 years later, I did go back to school and I went and got another degree, a master's degree in literature from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And that really was a result of just, we music majors, you have to take so many classes that meet 5 days a week that you very rarely get to take some of the courses that you were just interested in. And so my secondary degree was actually in English, American literature. And because I wanted to read the books that I never had time to read when I
Hmm.
was an undergrad. And so I ended up with this literature degree. And that I discovered in myself a love of writing as well, of writing lyrics and writing script and writing a text, writing books, reading and writing books. I really loved the whole creative process of that. So that again became a sort of another element. So that when a publisher came to me actually originally and had seen me do a workshop and asked me to write a book about show choir and about singing and dancing in amateur groups. And so I wrote a book for Jensen Publications at that time called Putting on the Glitz.
Hmm.
And it was really just, and I loved the process because I was able to sort of write kind of something that I knew about, or at least I had some experience in. And that got me into the publishing world. And I still was mostly going out and working in schools. But most people were not knocking my door down to be a choral clinician.
Hmm.
They were knocking my door down to come and help them stage shows and stage their musical, or because that's not an experience that most teachers at that time had much experience in. Music teachers, all of a sudden they got their
Hmm.
first job and somebody said, oh yeah, you have to have a show choir or you have to stage the musical, and they had no idea. So most of my experience early on was as a choreographer.
Well,
But
yeah.
as go ahead.
Oh, no, no.
Well, as things went well with the publishing, as long as like one project went well, then the publisher would ask you, well, what would you think about doing this? And, at that time we had this wonderful artist named Ed Lejeski, an arranger and a composer. And they said, Ed is writing a Christmas review. John, and put a script to it and add some choreography notes to it. And so that was a way of me then kind of collaborating with somebody. And to be honest with you, Samson, from my entire career really has been sort of the definition of collaboration. I can't do anything by myself, including hooking up all this tech equipment. I don't want to necessarily do anything by myself. I mean, almost everything I do, the only thing that would be different would be, say, like if I wrote a book, or like, here's a book I wrote called The Artist Within Me.
Right.
That you have to pretty much do all by yourself. You sit there and plunk it out. But most of my projects have been working with people that are my best friends and people that I admire so much as artists and educators.